like game one, I kind of expect to see is just like a little bit of solitaire here. We do have a couple reactive elements, from both sides, but nothing too crazy. It's not going to be like what we saw earlier where, the Is It Murktide deck is looking to get full lockdown. It's really going to be like, all right, here's my really proactive plan, and I've got a couple tools left and right to maybe, bounce a Rhino here, or an Archon here, or like something like that. Nothing very, very hard like we'll see in other decks.
Yep, totally agree. So while we got a little time, let's take a look at our other top 4 side of the bracket.
And that one's going
check
to
out some of
be
our other decks here.
Yep.
All right, so this is our scam deck that made it through Dom. And yeah, tell me about this list. I mean, we saw it in action there at the very end, but didn't really see it, fully in action through the whole match.
Yeah, so this is your typical Raptos Scam archetype. You've got your elementals like Fury and Grief. You combine them with Undying effects. They come back on as fast as turn 1, and they just go. They cause a lot of mayhem. You can discard your opponent's removal spells or other key spells, and you try to leverage the scam in order to create a board state that your opponent just can't come back from. Now, in this matchup, we're playing against 4-color Omnath, so it's going to be a little bit tricky because the Omnath deck is very well known for having a lot of removal spells. You can see there on the screen 4 Solitudes, 4 Leyline Bindings, and then also the 3 Prismatic Endings. So, the scam element may not necessarily be the best foot moving forward. Yesterday, while we were watching some scam decks, we could see, renowned players not even really trying to go for the scam. They just wanted to play like a red-black mid-range value deck. And even on that aspect, I feel like this list right here in front of us we'll have them pretty covered with, Risen Reef generating a lot of cards, and then also Teferi and Renin 6 also generating cards. It's going to be tricky.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I got to think that the 4-color matchup is favored. Otherwise, I don't know what this deck is supposed to be like super beating. I think it would be Murktide and Scam would be good, but it sounds like our match is made, so let's head on in to the first semifinal match.
All right, and once again, the King on the play here with a pretty great hand. I see Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Collective Brutality, and Thoughtseize, a pretty strong curve. On the other side, it looks like we have Shardless Agent, Brazen Borrower, and then Requisite Lands to cast. And a key note, Gemstone Caverns in the opening as well.
Yep, absolutely. So it does look like maybe this is already a mold to 6. Not exactly sure how many mulligans we have. But yeah, being on the draw with Gemstone Cavern, you can just kind of steal the playback essentially, but it's not very good against a hand that's full of season collective brutalities.
Yeah, that is going to be pretty crazy here. And this is one of the reasons why I think this Rakdos deck is so, fascinating, is because you do have these like explosive turn 1 plays, but then you can always fall back on, your standard quote unquote Jund grind, just trading effectively 1 for 1, and then you power out some sort of this is creativity. I apologize. But you still have access to that standard like mid-range battle where you're just playing, honest threats, and trying to generate Mize value where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does look like we had 1 card maybe missing or something there, because it shows 3 cards in hand and Violent Outburst drawn. Yeah, so something's not quite right there. There's just 1 card off on our hand viewer, so could be anything. Could even be a boat. Oh, it's going to be an ice. I bet that. I'll call that. Yeah, Fire Ice maybe not working so well with our hand viewer. A little tricky there, but...
This is a very clutch Fire Ice, though, because it's going to turn off Collective Brutality, disrupt the curve a little bit, and make the perfect window available for an end step or upkeep, or at any point Violent Outburst to get some Rhinos and get the game cooking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So being able to just put 2 4/4s into play and then have Force backup, this is exactly what we were kind of thinking, in the pre-match here, is if you can land this exact configuration, the King's just on the back foot, and it's going to take a lot of time, because these creativity decks, whether you're Jund, whether you're 4 colors, whether you're all the colors with Leylines Binding, the mana base is pretty painful.
It is pretty painful, and your spells, just to reliably do everything, sometimes you just have to put more lands into play, and you need more time, and you're going to see right now what's not being given time, because these 4/4 trampling Rhinos are just, they're in. They're not giving any mercy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to see kind of a fresh hand now from DeKing with Fable the Mirror Breaker Chapter 3, and wow, that put some good ones in hand with Terminate, Fatal Push, Collective Brutality, and Lightning Bolt that could team up to destroy something. All of a sudden with a draw like that, DeKing's looking pretty good here.
Oh yeah, and then Dwarven Mine now to make a 1/1. Pair that with a Lightning Bolt to get rid of a Rhino. You have ample removal afterwards. And check this out. Collective Brutality also going to take care of something like this Force of Negation in the hand for NBDF.
Yeah, probably just the mode of duress, essentially. So forcing the Force of Negation. And now you're able to just terminate a Rhino, Fatal Push a Rhino, and be like, yeah, good luck. And now it's just going to be on NBDF to just draw Shardless Agent or Violent Outburst like right now.
All right, moment of truth. What do we have? Scalding Tarn. That's not good enough. And we may just end up seeing a very quick stabilization here for DeKing, putting the Fable of the Mirror Breaker up to Chapter 3, Reflection of Kikijiki now in play. Things are going pretty well. Now, Lightning Bolt obviously doesn't pair too well against a freshly top deck Cascade spell, but right now the board state is stable, and this is where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And still 2 cards in NBDF's hand. So there's one mystery one, where if this is Violent Outburst or something, then it will still be troublesome, but it's got to be something good. Another land off the top is not what the doctor ordered. And now just DeKing is just going to play this fair game plan. Just attack, for 5 over and over and be able to close this game out in a couple turns. But that is the power of these Teamer Rhino decks. You can just draw one of the 8 namesake cards, and all of a sudden the board states just get flipped.
Okay.
Gone. Okay, it's all these split cards that are messing with the hand cam. So maybe we can put a note for that for future references. That probably just causes some problems. That would make sense. That's half their deck though. So
yeah. Game on a bit of a lullaby here. Goblin, Shaman, and the Dwarf token coming into play. Of note, we didn't play the Wooded Foothills last turn. Maybe there's a reason for that, but that could have theoretically put another token into play, accelerated the clock or something like that. Maybe playing around something there.
Definitely could. Usually playing to draw Fable, you like to keep 2 cards in hand so that you can just always have 2 great cards to discard. So whenever you can do that in these decks, just being able to start with 3 cards through a turn is just so impressive.
All right, top deck, Ketria Triumph going to cycle into a Brazen Borrower. And that's not a Cascade spell, but, Brazen Borrower can get rid of the Goblin Shaman token, for example, or act as a quote-unquote counter spell if the king gets a little sloppy with... okay, and there it is, with Indomitable Creativity, and there it is, Bitter Reunion
Great
to sort of
draw.
filter out.
Great draw to discard Mountain there. What did we find? Archon, almost castable. 3, 4, 5, 6. Getting close. You do have black mana in this, so the card is just always castable. But Ren to be able to get a couple lands, not too crazy to be casting that Archon 5, 6, 7. Yeah, you can cast Archon next turn with Bitter Reunion haste if I'm doing my math right.
That's pretty powerful.
5, 6, 7. Yeah, the 2 treasures make 8 and 9. So, yeah, next turn, we're done here almost no matter what. I can't really think what beats Archon besides like a Dead Gone to bounce or something. There is a Brazen Bar to bounce as well. So that will keep him alive, but yeah, I guess that had to be one of the main draws.
Yeah, there's no backup plan, if you will. Once the Archon, because at this point we just hard cast the Archons. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next turn we put land number 7 into play, and then you Brazen Borrower, and then the next turn we put land number 8 into play, and we're just recasting it. So this is honestly, it's really cool that this deck has this like really, really, really grindy like plan D, F, Z, I don't know, game available to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like the Fable the Mirror Breaker, the reflection side is kind of that like plan B next to just creativity. And then all of a sudden, if you draw too many Archons, plan A for that is usually discard them to persist. But you know what? I agree with you. Plan D is just hard casting this card.
And looks like we're going to get rid of the loose Gemstone Caverns. Renin 6 going to tick up, get Wooded Foothills here. Put that into play. fetch, maybe activate the Bitter Reunion, swing for lethal.
Yeah, not even going for it. Really interesting. Okay, decides to go for it here. I mean, it's not going to work, so it would have been kind of a crazy soul reap, but now you do get just 3 dwarfs in there. But on the flip side, we're going to see Petty Theft on Archon, and then you can actually cast Brazen Borrower and attack. So King's at a virtual 4 here.
Now, of note, we saw Dead, Gone, and Fire Ice. Are there any other ways to perhaps deal direct damage just to the face out of this deck?
Yeah, no direct damage out of the face. So it really, I guess, would have to be if we think of a Rhino top deck. It's tough.
It really is, yeah. And I
Because
feel like even a Rhino top deck kind of loose because we have the requisite black mana in the form of Blood Crypt and Satora's Proving Ground. So
yeah.
Just one turn too short, if you will.
Yeah, you just need a mountain or something left in your deck, one more Dwarven Mine, which I'm pretty sure we at least have a Dwarven Mine, and you just get to cast Archon again. That being said, you can't give it haste this time. It's just going to... Oh, I guess, yeah, you just get to attack for lethal. That's also a pretty good plan.
Yeah. Good enough, yep.
For lethal, yeah. There we go.
3 mana and right-click concede.
All right, impressive stuff.
All right, so diving into the deck list here, we're going to take a look at the Rhinos deck list. Anything in the sideboard that is interesting for you? We may have briefly mentioned a couple cards, but hit me with them again. What's good here?
Definitely Blood Moon. I think you just mainly in these Rhino decks, it's usually a situation of what's bad more than what's good. I mean, of course, there's of course some situations where you for sure want cards. Subtlety against Amulet, Force of Vigor against Breach decks, stuff like that where you're automatically bringing stuff in. But I would think Fury is a card I would very much want to get out of my deck. Probably Subtlety as well. And I'd want to be bringing in Endurances for the Persist plan and Blood Moons for the Dwarf plan, and maybe Dispute.
Okay.
Dispute when you're on the play is actually not bad, even though it is not a blue deck in any way, shape, or form. So it's still kind of awkward as just a 3-mana lake, but we might see it. I'm not truly sure. It'll be interesting to see how these players decide to do it.
All right, and on the other side, looks like the game is starting here, so we're going to dive into the first post-board game of our top 4 here. But on the other side, I'll be curious to see if we get into a game 3, what the available tools are here for the King on Jund Creativity. Opening hands are looking pretty good. I see Indomitable Creativity, Thoughtseize, Veil, Renin 6 in the King's hand, and on the other side, Brazen Borrower, Forest, and likely a dual card. That's going to get mulligan immediately, though. So, new stuff here. And
what kind of dual card? We get to play that guessing game. You know what? That adds to some fun. But the thing that, is confusing to me isn't Brazen Borrower kind of a dual card as well? But I guess technically, since it's an adventure card, maybe it's templated a little differently. I digress.
Yeah, and this is really rough. Is this okay? It's a mulligan down to 5. One card that we don't know yet. Wooded Foothill is going to fetch for a Breeding Pool, Suspend Crashing Footfalls, and we're
going to see it right away, Anurag, because it's going to get Thoughtseize. I bet it's a Fire Ice with searching for a blue land as well, trying to set up that tap a land and then Violent Outburst type of plan. But yeah, I don't think there's a way you're not going to Thoughtseize here turn 1.
Yeah, very, very perceptive. And honestly, Corey, is there anything you can't do? I mean, being able to read the invisible, that's a superpower I would love to... Oh, wow. Wait a minute.
Well, apparently I couldn't even read the visible here because they didn't even go for the Thoughtseize, which is crazy to me. I guess you just really want to... I don't know. I don't agree with this because if it is Fire and Ice, now you get to tap this land down too. Unless you really just need the Proving Grounds as like, I have to have this as a land to start, which I could see.
How about a Cryptic Command?
Yeah, Cryptic Command on the Veil here did work out quite well. Now, granted, you'd kind of be able to do that anyways if you just get Overgrown Tomb, but maybe we just don't have that in the deck since this is a Dwarven Mine deck. That would make sense too. So yeah, just scratch whatever I've just said at the beginning of this game from the record, and we'll start over. Okay, so here we are getting into the second game here of the semifinals, and
Who's going to win, though? Because it looks like we just hit our third land. NBDF now has access to endurance that the king does know about. But I mean, just that's it. Like this mulligan down to 5 was really brutal. One endurance is cool, but on the other side, there's 2 creativities, a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Ren and 6 as well. I feel like this one's basically wrapped up.
Well, there is a Rhino suspended, so we do have that. Let's check out what that timer is, Adrian, and we'll see what it's down to. Yeah, so going down to 1, so there is going to be Rhinos next turn, but I agree with you. This is looking quite bad, especially with another crashing footfall off the top. I did not think this match was going to look kind of so lopsided, but I guess when you have hand disruption and pressure like this Jund creativity deck does, kind of bad news bears if you have to mulligan a lot as a Rhino player.
And that is kind of interesting too, right? Because the Rhinos deck is pretty. I mean, I don't say this in a bad way, but it just is what it is. It is somewhat of a linear deck where you really need to have a hand that can get access to, crashing footfalls as fast as possible. So you're not allowed to just keep any sort of, what is it called? Synergy based hand, like, you might see in other decks.
Yeah.
And that means in the long resource based battle, you can actually fall behind a lot.
This was awesome here. This was a DeKing knowing about this endurance and be like, he's just saying, I dare you to. And it's not like DeKing has the option to just fatal push this, but why do that when instead you can just play Boseiju and Indomitable Creativity your treasure and get an Archon here? Not only stripping your opponent of the last card in hand, which it can't be Force of Negation. I mean, it could be, but you can't pitch for anything. And you get to deal with the endurance for the low cost of a Shaman token. So I think that was really smart play by DeKing. And it was forced by NBDF, so not like there was any real decision. But if NBDF doesn't play endurance, does DeKing go for it? Maybe not.
Yeah. And that's going to be a quick concession here. DeKing 3603 now on to the finals of our modern 10K here, our monthly Manatraders. Yeah, it looked fantastically easy. I mean, like first taking a Twinless Twin down 2-0 in the span of like 10, 15 minutes, and now here running it back. I mean, I'm going to say like at this stage, like
5 minutes,
yeah, yeah. Like I'm going to say right now, I think DeKing is just going to win this whole event.